Okay, so today we're going to be talking about our top 10 movies that came out in 2018. So, I don't know how we want to handle this, but I think 10 to 1.
Right.
10, good. 1 obviously being our favorite, but I feel like this year, there was a lot of movies that came out last year that I was, in love with. Mm-hmm. But, this year, I'm still,
I'm, really curious to see when a lot of, the big movie channels on YouTube start doing, Oscar politics, because I'm genuinely I don't know.
I don't know what's going to be Oscar worthy.
I think definitely Roma and The Favorite will be in consideration. That's what I'm trying to say. Because I know those are big ones for the Golden Globes, and I just feel like they're getting a lot of buzz.
Yeah, I feel like last year though it was this 3 Billboards.
Oh yeah.
Shape of Water, boom, we knew all these amazing movies coming into it, but
right. This year I like it better that way though, because it's really a toss-up. But I will say that there's a lot of good summer indies, because that's where most of mine come from.
Yeah, same.
Or summer indies, which is surprising because normally summer is the time where I'm
it's a lot of
we gotta get through this
big franchise.
Yeah. And this year, November and December, I didn't see that many movies because not many came out that I wanted to go see.
So my number 10 this year was Roma, which was the most recent movie that I've seen so far. And we watched it on Netflix last week or something like that. Mm-hmm. It was one of those movies that it's so interesting, especially because it's a foreign film, essentially. It's a foreign film. And so I feel like with foreign films, you can really tell that it's not an American film, which is good. That it's it feels so real. Roma felt really real, and there were real emotions and real scenes, and it wasn't it didn't feel unrealistic. And that was nice, I think. The story was really good. The acting was really good for it just being... It felt like we were looking into somebody's life. And, that was a good thing,
Right. I had Roma at my 10 until I did a very hot take in the middle, which you will see. But, so it would definitely be, an honorable mention for me. It's really good. Yeah, super simplistic.
Yeah.
Which is good. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, you don't need all of the big flashy stuff that we have with a lot of our American movies. And, that's good. It's refreshing.
Exactly.
To see that.
So my 10 is Sorry to Bother You.
Okay. That's a movie.
Let's talk about Sorry to Bother You.
That's a journey.
It's a journey, man. First of all, I loved it. I love dark comedy. Yeah. That's one of my favorite genres. And this is, I would say, definitely falls under that. Just the plot twist. If you don't know the plot twist, I'm not gonna say it because,
it's Sorry to Bother You is actually my number 9, so we can just hop over here.
Hop on the train because
we watched it together in the theaters, and I remember when things really started to heat up. Because, you can tell that it's going to be a different movie from the start, and it's, really interesting. The style is really unique, and, it's artsy and cool. But, when the surprise plot twist hit you, you were already kind of messed up from, oh, this movie's, all right,
Yeah.
And then it happens.
And I'm pretty sure
really just
So this is us sitting in the theater.
Yeah, we're just
watching. It happens.
We literally turned to look at each other. It was so, and the ending too. There's the twist, and then there's the ending, and it's on Hulu now. I checked out the other day. Don't know how long it's gonna stay. But it's on Hulu if you want to watch it, because you should. It's a journey, but it's a really good one.
I can say this is probably the biggest plot twist I've ever seen in any movie, in my life. Bigger than Sixth Sense, bigger.
Yeah.
Because I genuinely did not
in no sense of the word
in
expected.
No way, not even in the trailer does it even hint to what it's gonna become.
Right.
So that it's just such a big surprise movie and
it's a fitting surprise too. It's not the surprise comes out of the blue and you're oh, what happened to this movie?
Yeah.
You're what happened to this movie? But it's in a good way, and it makes sense for that twist to be there.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting take on the corporate and political and society relationship in American, but that's fine.
All right, so that was
my number 9.
Okay, so I guess I'll just go with my number 9, which is 3 Identical Strangers.
A doc.
A doc.
Interesting.
Very interesting. So I am obsessed with 3 Identical Strangers. I think it's one of the best documentaries of the year. Obviously, it's on my top 10. It was just done so well. The first 10 minutes of it just introducing what we're about to see go down is so interesting, and the journey of it takes, and then there is even a plot twist in a documentary, which is like kind of hard to do, I feel like. I don't know, because like people kind of know where it's going, but like leading up to it, you kind of know something's wrong for multiple of reasons, but like they really build the intensity until they're like, boom, like this is what happens, and it's like, wow. And it's funny. It's a really funny documentary too, and dark as well, so like dark comedy, hello. Yeah, I think it was really well done, very interesting, informative, and funny. My number 8 is a film I don't believe was released in theaters, and it's Netflix's The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which I don't think you've seen. I have not. I don't even know anything about it. It's the new Coen Brothers movie that's exclusively on Netflix, and it's like it's an anthology of, I believe, 5 different short stories, and they're all really dark. It's Coen Brothers, so it's like dark humor for the most part, and I loved them. Honestly, it's like, when I was watching it, I didn't know it was an anthology coming into it, like what I've seen of it. I was like, oh, it's just this guy that was in a Brother Arthur. Sorry, I don't know your name. But the whole time, it's just a fun and cheery thing. But like each little story is so good. But it's all like Wild West themed stories, and they all have some sort of twist to them, or some sort of like open ending type of thing. They have some big names in it. James Franco's in it. Liam Neeson is in it with Dudley from Harry Potter. They're the same one. I'm on board. That's the darkest one for sure. Mad-Eye Moody from Harry Potter is also in it. Harry Potter reunion. So like it's just all really interesting. I think that it's a fun movie to watch on Netflix. It's not anything where you're gonna like be so like emotionally distraught, or it's just it's a good Coen Brothers movie, if it's their theme. It sounds fun. Like I would really like to watch it. Well, it's on Netflix. My number 8 is another doc, Won't You Be My Neighbor? Won't You Be My Neighbor? Give me the tissues. We were sobbing at the end of... sobbing. We were easily the youngest people in the theater by at least 30 years. Yes. At least. Yeah. It's just so heartwarming. It just makes you... First of all, I remember Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but like the newer ones that were like played on reruns, like on PBS. But like the older ones, and even the newer ones, like it just makes you like look at the world as a child, not through the eyes of an adult, but the adult subject matter, like making it appropriate for children, and like having the world not be closed off to children. Like he talks about such like dark and like serious subject matters, but in a way that children can watch and realize. And looking back as an adult, I'm like, wow, that's so true. Because as a kid, some of it might go over your head a little bit, but like really looking back as an adult, I'm like, that is such a good way to show kids the world. Because kids go through stuff like that. Right, exactly. Yeah. It was just so good. And like seeing his life, and they talked about the good, they talked about the bad, they talked about everything with him. And like by the end, they ask pretty much like all the people they interviewed, like, this is what really got me. They were like, who was like the most, was it like influential? Somebody who had an impact on your life. Yeah, and like who just you want to think about it. Yeah. Because they were just thinking about it, right? Like we all sat in silence for like a long time. Like the audience, like the movie, and we were just sitting there. Hopefully everybody else was crying, and it wasn't just me curled up in the corner of my seat crying, because it was just so... Because, like, I mean, I know I had a person in my head. I know you had a person in your head. Like, I hope everyone in the theater had a person in their head that they were just, like, thinking about. And, like, it's just so sad. I'm gonna cry. Sad. Like, and it just teaches about, like, just love and being thankful and, like... Yeah. Seeing the world for what it is and not being afraid to tackle that. So my number 7 is The Rider, which I know is on your list later, so we don't have to talk too much about it. But that was, I think, one of the first movies that we watched this summer that kind of kicked off our like summer indie movie watching, because like I didn't know anything about it, and so I think you told me that it was like a guy in the rodeo gets a head injury. Okay, that sounds terrible. But it was another one of those films that it's really realistic, because they got real people, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. It was just real people doing a story, and it wasn't what you expected, because like when you hear like a cowboy or something in a rodeo, you're like, all right, like it's just gonna be, one of those stories, one of those like typical male stories, but it had more emotion and more depth to it than I thought it would have. Right. My number 7 is American Animals.
Later on my list.
I loved American Animals. It's so
good.
It's so good. It's so unique.
The style, the story, everything was so... It was so weird because it was like... Was it a documentary?
It could literally, you could call this a documentary.
You could argue,
like,
for sure.
I would be like, yeah, okay. Yeah. You could call this a narrative, and I'd be like, yeah, okay. Yeah. Like, it's so good. One of my favorite techniques that I don't think I've seen done, they have a scene play out according to one person's memory. Like, the real person who went through this explains it, plays out the scene, and then they have the next real person be like, oh no, like this happened, and it's a completely different scene. And like, so it's not a new technique, I guess, but like it's done very well here. And
it's not something that you see when you're expecting a narrative. Like when we were sitting down watching it and suddenly you see the real whatever his name was pop up and like that's his lower third, we were like, hang on. At least I was like, wait a second. What are we watching again? And it's so well done. I think.
Like the story itself is just so compelling. A heist movie.
And Evan Peters did an amazing job in this movie. He was so good. All of them did an amazing job, but
yeah, it was just so unique and so on the edge of your seat kind of movie, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree. My number 6 was a movie that we saw really early this year. I don't remember when, but I just remember it was a lot earlier, was Annihilation. I believe this was directed by the same people who did Ex Machina, which I really like. And it was just such an interesting science fiction movie because it was another movie that I expected just be like, all right, like I don't know anything about this, which has worked out in my favor, not knowing anything about a movie coming into it. But I loved the art design of the film so much. They have this animal thing. Basically, the gist of the story is that there's this area. It's all very like sci-fi, so like none of it really makes sense. There's this area to where inside everything grows and morphs into each other, and it's like this cancerous thing. And there's this animal design that's like a bear, and he has like half of his skull exposed or something.
I forgot about the bear.
It was so scary, but it was so awesome. Like as soon as I saw it, I was like, yes, I love that. I love the design of it so much. It was a beautiful film. All the acting was amazing. There's a twist at the end, or is it like a is that what happened? I don't know. There's also an iconic scene that's very haunting. The film's sound design was scary. It's one of those soundtracks that you're uncomfortable the whole time. There's a specific scene that I'm talking about. It's a mirroring scene. It's really weird. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. And it's just like, oh, you're so uncomfortable watching it. But it's like, for me, it's a good uncomfortable. I was enthralled the whole time. I really enjoyed it. It was honestly a beautiful film. I think it's something so interesting to watch if you're just into the, like, art design alone.
All right, so my number 6 is The Writer.
Wow.
Shocker. But yeah, I love this movie so much. Again, the realism is just incredible. And like, it's always like nerve-wracking when you get real people, not actors. But I did not know they were real people until afterwards, and we were looking it up. I'm like, those were the real people? Because like many people tried to do that. I'm talking about the Clint Eastwood movie about the train, and like it wasn't good. They got the real people, and I'm like, well, this is gonna be terrible. They're not actors. But like these people, like they need to get an acting career because oh my god, they were incredible.
And I think that works in their favor in this type of movie where it's supposed to be like the Clint Eastwood movie was very like action-packed, and you had to have these such intense emotions, and like you can't just, if you're not an actor, you can't just conjure that up. But this movie was very like is real, it was real life happening, and it was something that they could relate to, but they didn't have to dig so deep.
And
that's like Roma, I think, where it's like these films that are just real, and it's like, okay, I'm enjoying this. It's refreshing.
Just the simplicity of this is just, it's breathtaking. Like the cinematography is so good. It's so good. There's one scene where he's trying to tame like a wild horse.
Yeah.
The camera work on that is phenomenal because they're in like a round ring, and it's just like, it's just really good camera work. And the simplicity and the beauty of the story is just like, it's heartwarming to watch and heartbreaking to watch. And
this film does a really good job about negating the ideas of toxic masculinity for me, because you see these friendships that these men have, and you expect that this rodeo life is going to be very kind of gross in multiple aspects, but then you see this like love that they have for each other.
Yeah,
it's really nice to see. You don't really see it that much.
Yeah, I think family dynamic is talked about really well, and how like something serious can how something serious can like affect a family in negative and positive ways. Because like the main character the whole time, like the plot is essentially he's had a head injury and can't ride anymore. It's all about like wanting to keep your child safe and like, no, you can't do this, you can't do this. But it's like the whole idea of like, if you don't do what you love, are you really living? But then the question, so that's the whole question through the whole movie. And then the question becomes, well, are there more things worth living for? Better things worth living for? And the answer is yes, because like, which is his dad and his little sister, which by the way, the brother-sister relationship in this movie, it's so pure. It's so pure. It's so heartwarming. And I love how the whole time you think like the theme is supposed to be, oh, but like if I'm not doing what I love, then I'm not living. But then it's like, no, there are better things worth living for.
Number 5. Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Yes.
Let's cry about it some more. Let's cry. It's just so heartwarming because I remember watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood with my mom when I was a kid, and just like, it's so pure. We've already talked about it. So many people have seen Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and have been touched by it. Like when they're kids, it's so formative for your early years, I feel, and like bringing these subject matters in that you know that he dealt with when he was a kid, and like nobody was there for him, and now he's going to be there for all these kids, and he was just so sweet, and like nobody could believe that he was that sweet, but he's the second Jesus. There was a quote I think in the movie where he was like, his son was like, what's it like, you know, when your dad's the second coming of Jesus, like how he's supposed to like live up to that. It was just so good, and honestly you can't say anything bad about this movie. I won't allow it.
You really can't.
That means you're saying something bad about Mr. Rogers, and that's just no. You'll just want to be nice to everyone after this. And like, if you're ever feeling like, you know, bad about the world, or like people are terrible, blah, 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 go watch Won't You Be My Neighbor. And it's just like, the political stances that this movie takes, or not the movie itself, but Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood took, is something that I didn't know, obviously, when I was a kid. Like, I didn't think about it. I was privileged enough to be growing up in the early 2000s, and so I didn't have to deal with these things that happened in like the 60s, 70s eras. And so that's not really something that I ever thought about. And to go back and see this and to see more behind the scenes of that was like, oh, I didn't, okay, you know, that's what was happening back then. Oh, you know. So, and then even in such like a pure environment that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was.
We're about to have a hot take. Okay, so here's the thing. My number 5, listen. Some of these movies on my list, it's really only this movie. It's just, I love it because I love it. And there's no other reason why.
And that's okay.
People are criticizing it, and that's totally fine. I hate when people are just like so pretentious to be like, okay, listen. My number 5 is Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. I love it. I just love it. And there's no other, like, okay, because first of all, I do think it's better than the first one. I know people will disagree with me, but I think it's better in the fact that the first one, although I did like, it didn't capture a magical tone. And like, I hate to compare it to Harry Potter because it is different than Harry Potter, but it didn't capture the magical tone that I got from all the Harry Potters. If you don't know, I'm like one of the biggest Potterheads. I love Harry Potter so much. It means a lot to me. I had so much fun in this movie. Listen, it has flaws. I understand that. It had such a good magical tone for me that expanded the wizarding world. The writing's not good. The writing is where it falters because J.K. Rowling tried to pack a lot of stuff in here. There's like 7 subplots going on. There's a lot of subplots. And even though it does that, I think the character development is still there. So I think it's getting criticism that it doesn't need. Right now it has a 38% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Does it really?
Yes. And like, I don't think it deserves that.
What's the first one have?
Like a 75. So all of them are fresh except for this one. And I don't think it deserves that. I mean, this is just a movie on here because it's fun and I loved it, and yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Don't come for me.
I've never seen either of the Fantastic Beasts movies, but I feel like something really important with making your favorite movie list, or just your favorite movies, is, when we were talking about this earlier, I base mine on half like the technical aspects and, you know, what makes a good movie a good proper movie, but also like the feeling that I get from them. And if it's something that you enjoy, then like, you know, if it's a good feeling, if you're living with a good, if it's something that impacted you so much, then like, obviously it's a good movie, you know?
Right.
So number 4 on my list is American Animals. So we've already talked about it. Basically, I don't know what else there is to say. I just think it was a really compelling movie. It was really interesting. The style isn't like anything that we've seen before. I don't think that's at least a recent narrative movie. I really like the design of everything. The poster is really cool.
The poster is really good.
Yeah.
I think that wins Best Movie Poster of the Year. All right, my number 4 is... I had a really tough time with my 4 and 3. They're kind of like interchangeable almost. My number 4 is 8th Grade.
I love this movie so much. Oh, it's my next one. It's number 3.
Yeah. So we'll talk about it together,
Okay.
I guess. It encapsulates what being a 13-year-old girl is.
It's literally insane because this is Bo Burnham's directorial debut, first off.
Literally.
Second off, he's like a 24-year-old man. How does he capture being a 13-year-old girl so well? And like, I don't understand. Elsie Fisher is amazing. Love her. I want the best for her in her life.
I want her to get an Oscar nomination.
Oh, she's so good. Like, it makes my heart hurt because like that was me in 8th grade. Like, I feel like I looked like her. I acted like her. My social life was like her. Like, it was so good. And like what really got me the most is whenever it's like her and her dad sitting around the campfire and she was like talking about like if she had a daughter like her or something like that. Like, what did she say?
She was like, if I was you, I would be sad that I had a daughter like me or something.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh no.
Oh, it hurts my heart so much.
And like when she was talking about like, I feel like my entire life is waiting in line for a roller coaster. I'm just like, yes.
It's so heartwarming. And like this would have been my top 3 were hard to decide, but I think my top 2 are other reasons why I like them. It's kind of like I love my top 3 equally. Mm-hmm. And this one is just, it just makes my heart hurt. So that was my number 3.
Okay, so my number 3 is The Miseducation of Cameron Post.
Okay.
Loved it.
Yeah.
That was like a summer indie that like didn't come out of the blue for me because I saw a lot of people talking about it at like Sundance or TIFF or something. I don't remember. And I was like, oh my God, it looks so good. I really want to see it, and did not disappoint. There are 2 specific scenes in mind that like I just keep thinking about. Like, one of the very last scenes, this isn't really a spoiler. It's when the 3 main characters and like the guy camp counselor, they're all
at the table.
They're sitting eating cereal.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That scene, I was like, my heart was beating fast for some reason. I was like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Yeah. It's literally a static shot for literally 5 minutes.
And they're eating cereal.
Like, that's it. They say like hi when he comes to sit down, and then they just like eat cereal. And like, it'll make sense if you see it right now. It sounds insane. Yeah. Really good writing, good acting, good directing. That's what makes a good movie. So like, yeah, I really loved it.
It's an honorable mention for me, I think. And I know a lot of people have some issues with LGBTQ movies being, a lot of their focus now is like the conversion camps. Mm-hmm. But I think it's something to shed a light on because like that actually happens. Those things are real. Right. And so for somebody who doesn't know really anything about them like me, and obviously I'm not going to take this movie as like, this is what happens, but it's such an interesting and like really messed up world. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so my number 2 is a movie that I've been looking forward to. When I saw the trailer, I was really excited. And it was BlacKkKlansman, Spike Lee. Amazing. Yeah. I think the story behind it was really interesting when it was real, which was twice as interesting. Mm-hmm. Basically, it's a black man who goes undercover as a KKK member, up and coming member. A lot of my favorite movies, I feel like I have a hard time explaining why I like them. I just get this feeling that I really like them. Yeah. And like all the technical aspects are good. Like there's interesting shots. The writing, I think, is what I like most about it. You're just so enthralled the entire time that you're like anxious for what happens the whole time. But it's like, you know, it's a good anxious. And the ending is really interesting because it ends, the narrative of the story ends, you get this resolution, you're happy with it, you know, as happy as you can for that. And then it goes into some real kind of post-credit scenes of what's happening in America today and how that's reflected from the 70s movie that we just watched. And like, It was intense.
I agree. I think it was really good. I think the writing was genius. Like, very good writing. The strongest part. Definitely the strongest part. It's an important story.
It's an important story politically and socially, but it's just an interesting narrative, I think, in the first place, like, regardless. And I think that says something in itself, I think.
I think it was very blunt. Very blunt.
Yeah. Which it needed to be blunt.
Yeah.
I feel like being blunt and this type of subject matter is really important because dancing around the subject would just do it in injustice would just do it in injustice because, like, this happened and these types of things happen and people really think this way, like, even today. So, like, boom, be blunt with it. Like, there's no reason not to be, you know?
Yeah, it only adds to the impact of the message of the movie.
Exactly.
All right. My number 2 is Hereditary.
A scary movie. I did not see it because I'm a baby.
It's probably the scariest movie I've seen in a long time. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that. First of all, the little girl in it is me. Like, me as a child. You think she's the main character. I love when movies do that. I love when movies, like, point as one person as the main character and then they're like, you thought wrong. The movie changes to a sense of, like, horror movie telling about family dynamic and, like, family history. And it's so interesting because a tragedy happens in the family and then it's like, how do you deal with that? I really like the movie The Babadook. It's a really good movie and I think it talks about grief in the vein of a horror movie. I ripped that exact statement from Chris Stuckman. He said it in his review, and I completely agree. So credit Chris Stuckman. He said that, and I completely agree. I think it can be applied to Hereditary. It's family trauma told in a horror movie. It picks up, too, with, like, some supernatural elements. The mom is an artist, and, like, her main pieces of art she makes are, like, little dioramas of, like, houses and, like, just little things, like, for Bratz dolls. I think that's so interesting because, like, it's kind of like she's looking down on you and just how, like, your family history and, like, these people up here, the hierarchy, they're looking down on you. Like, it's a really good metaphor. It's terrifying. It makes you very uncomfortable. That's what's so good about it. I was literally, like, having, like, panic in the theater, just like, I was, like, crawled up in my seat, like, it just makes it so tense. The ending is crazy, and I very much appreciated it.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the boy in that the boy from the Naked Brothers band? Is it?
But yeah, I just think it's a really well done horror movie, and it's definitely one of my new favorite horror movies of all time.
Before we get to number ones, I think it's important that we talk about some honorable mentions. 2 of my honorable mentions, I feel like we could do a whole different video about this, but I think TV now is it's to a point where they could be considered movies.
Right.
Really, really long movies, but movies. And 2 amazing TV shows that came out this year. The Haunting of Hill House.
Yes.
The Haunting of Hill House was amazing. I don't like scary things, obviously. I don't like supernatural scary things, I'll put it that way. And this is exactly what Haunting of Hill House is. But it's so good, and I'm sure a million people have talked about it, and nobody else needs to talk about it, and that's fine. I won't go into that much detail. But the dynamic, the family, the characters, how each character represents something, the house as a character, it's so good.
Yeah.
My number 2 I will mention is Castle Rock on Hulu, which is a show that is all of the Stephen King universes kind of smushed together. And my professor recommended me this show. Stephen King is such a hit or miss genre. He's his whole genre. But it was such a good show. Again, another one that's just very emotional and confusing, but, like, in a good way. It's an open ending. It's an ending where you're talking about it still because, like, what's happening? You don't know what to believe.
I'm just gonna pull up my list of movies and I'm just gonna name the names. Like, I won't even talk about them. I'll just go down the list. Annihilation, Game Night, Love, Simon, I really enjoy. Black Panther, I'm not really a superhero movie person and I enjoyed it. So, A Quiet Place, that's a big honorable mention for me. I really enjoyed The Quiet Place. Thoroughbreds, Dumplin', Can You Ever Forgive Me?
Okay, so number 1 for me of the year was...
Wait!
Isle of Dogs. which we all been knew was I Love Dogs. I have a poster back there. As soon as this movie was announced in 2017, I was like, I'm ready. I am that white girl, and I love Wes Anderson. Sorry, I know some people think this movie's problematic. I think it was done in a respectful way, but I feel like I'm not in a place to talk about that side of things. But it was such a pure movie, and like, one, Bryan Cranston, love of my life, Bryan Cranston, Dogs, Wes Anderson. It was literally made for me.
It was made for Abby.
I just love like his humor, his style. It was a Wes Anderson movie, like through and through. I think Fantastic Mr. Fox was the better of his two anime movies, but that aside, such a good movie. It has a good message at the end. Jordan was asleep the whole time.
I was like, what are you talking about? Sorry.
I was looking for this movie for a whole year. And Jordan fell asleep.
Listen. I liked the parts that I saw.
I gotta go. But it's a typical Wes Anderson movie. The humor, Wes Anderson humor, the style, everything. Plotline was good. I love Bryan Cranston. That's it.
Solid number 1.
Yeah. And everyone, if you don't like this movie, you don't like dogs. And do you really want to be that person? No.
Alright, my number 1. It's a weak drum roll. The Favorite.
Okay.
I love The Favorite.
We just watched this recently, too.
I think
like 2 weeks ago.
Okay, I've said like 5 times in this video, my favorite genre is dark comedy. And this is the poster child for dark comedy.
It really is.
So when it was advertised, all I knew was period drama, Emma Stone, and people. It was in the comedy category at the Golden Globe. So I was like, okay, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Went in, I was literally dying the entire movie.
Yeah.
And I always get nervous. This is something really weird, but anytime there's like title cards in a movie, I get really nervous because I'm like, oh my God, how long is it gonna be? I'm like, how many title cards are we gonna get?
Yeah.
But at the end, I like wanted it to continue. It was like a 2-hour movie, so like a hearty movie.
Yeah.
It didn't feel that long. I think it was hilarious. I love the whole, like, I'm gonna point out, like, the old-timey, like, how ridiculous their lives were.
Yeah.
Like, how gluttonous and vain everyone was. Mm-hmm. It was incredible. The 3 girls in it,
amazing.
Oh my God.
All of the characters were great in this movie. I love them all.
Incredible. Yeah. So good. This is a movie I'm gonna rewatch again and again and again. I love the interesting camera options because we were like,
it was weird. It was almost, yeah, it was really, we're doing this. It reminded me like almost of like Sorry to Bother You, like
yeah,
odd choices that they were making that I wasn't expecting for like the piece especially. Also kind of reminded me of Marie Antoinette, that was like, I'm so quirky in the Victorian era. But like there was like the 4th shot was like a fish island.
Yeah, it was
like,
crazy.
What are we doing?
There was a lot of like whip, like
yeah,
boom, and there was a lot of just like also like twirling around the entire like 360, and then there was fisheye, and we were just like, interesting.
What are we doing here? Like, there's like Wes Anderson pans,
yeah,
fisheye of like a GoPro, like
literally. The comedy in it was so good and dark and like subtly sprinkled in just the right way.
Very dry.
Very dry. One of my favorites is like the woman is like, does she have gout? Is that what it's called?
I think so, yeah.
She's like laying in pain and she's like, are you still there? She's like, yes. Are you still there? Yes. Like, it was hilarious. And then the dancing scene when they're like,
that was amazing.
And they're like, yeah, like leans back. I'm like, what? It's very like importance of being earnesty to me because like they're mocking like the proper, like, I'm a queen, how dare you? But yet like the queen's literally a rag. It's so funny, it's so dark, and I was not expecting this I didn't even know if this was gonna make my top 10 like going into the movie, and I was like, it's my favorite. It's
up to number 1.
She went up to number 1, and I love The Favorite. I really, really love The Favorite.
Well, that was our top 10 of 2018. So I think in honor of 8th grade and Elsie Fisher, we should conclude with
Gucci.
Gucci. So pure.
Oh, so pure. Let your body move to the music.